Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending our Cognitive Systems Institute Group Speaker Series this morning. I'm happy to introduce Dr. Wayne Imaino. He is a distinguished research staff member at the IBM Almaden Research Center, currently working to develop machine intelligence. He received a PhD degree in physics from Purdue University in 1980 and is co-inventor of more than 50 inventions and co-author of more than 30 technical papers. I will put his prior work in the chat. Today, Wayne is going to talk to us about a platform for machine intelligence called Kate, and I'll turn it over to you, Wayne. And at the end of the call, I'd like to open it up for questions, and to unmute your line, just press *1. Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you, Diane. So I work in a group where we're trying to develop machine intelligence, and we've defined machine intelligence as shown in this first foil, where it's distinct from machine learning, where machine learning is trying to solve a specific task on labeled data by defining and optimizing an objective function, usually using backprop, and many times, very often, supervised learning. In machine intelligence, we're trying to develop something that continuously learns from unlabeled data and really does unsupervised learning, but can use supervised learning as well, perform motor actions, predict consequences of those actions, and plan ahead to reach goals. Really trying to develop something that can learn faster, can generalize, make decisions on novel circumstances. So even though it hasn't seen precisely that set of circumstances before, it can figure out ways of applying that past experience to this new situation. So we're developing Kate, which is a robot. Kate stands for this cognitive anthropomorphic temporally enabled robot, and temporally enabled refers to the hierarchical temporal paradigm of Jeff Hawkins, and we're principally pursuing that idea for Kate. And in the bottom of this figure, it sort of shows our hope, more than what we've actually done yet, of achieving a universal learning mechanism, maybe based on HTM, this hierarchical temporal memory paradigm, where inputs of various types, which could be vision or sound, are then input into HTM, and once it's input into HTM, it becomes a sparse distributed representation of neural cells being excited, and we then work on these SDRs, sparse distributed representation of cells, and make forecasts and recognize anomalies and control actuators. So next slide. So we're really trying to develop a method of using HTM for bipedal locomotion, and HTM, principally a method that uses sequences, we think is appropriate for this task. So sequences, you can imagine that sequences could be important, and one of the reasons we were attracted to start with HTM is the fact that sequences we memorize a lot of things in sequences. For example, I ask you, what is the sixth word in the Star-Spangled Banner? We all start with the first word and go forward, and we run through that sequence. And when we run through that sequence of words, we recognize the appropriate word. We also recognize songs, a sequence of sounds, and make an association with a song based on sequences. And HDM is very good at learning and predicting sequences. And in order for HDM to predict the sequence, it must know the context. So we're expecting that HDM will be very good at any problem where context is important. And that's one of the primary reasons we are trying to use HDM for bipedal locomotion. So in this slide, we've built this robot over the summer. It's kind of a student version. It has a PVC pipe for its body. It also has PVC pipe for the legs, but we replaced it with some aluminum or steel tubing. Kate follows a biological architecture. We want to use a central pattern generator for low-level control. Right now, that is we use a commercial off-the-shelf motor controller for that purpose. But we're expecting to use the sensor motor algorithm of HDM, where there's a sequence of sensor motor samples that HDM learns, and given motor effort, we can then predict what the sensor input should be. For example, after a step, we will expect pressure on the foot, and after a sensor input, then we should predict what motor action HDM should initiate. So that's how we're planning to use HDM for bipedal locomotion. Now, just a brief word on HDM. HDM is sort of an algorithm, but it's not done yet. It's evolving. Many pieces are still coming together, even though Jeff Hawkins refers to our hierarchy in his book and on his website. No one really has developed the hierarchy yet. But we do have these pieces of the HDM algorithm. So the HDM algorithm is comprised of the spatial pooler, the temporal memory, and the temporal pooler. The spatial pooler, as is written here, regulates the connection of all inputs to the cell columns. And column activity is determined by thresholding and inhibition. By the way, a paper just came out on arXiv describing the mathematics of it, and this is by a professor at Rochester Institute of Technology, Dirisha Kudithipudi. She has analyzed this part of HDM. So a key piece of HDM, of course, is this sparse distributed representation, and you just look through, there's been lots of work on this well prior to Jeff Hawkins, but there's a lot of interesting and powerful analytics associated with the SDRs. The temporal memory encodes the sequences, and this is the piece that gives us predictive ability for sequences. If you could just imagine a sequence of numbers, if any number repeats, to predict the next number in the sequence requires that you understand the prior context or the prior samples of that sequence, and that's what we term the context. And that HDM4.4, I have to say, for single inputs, where the inputs are numbers or words or letters, HDM does a very good job at predicting it. Such a good job that Numenta, so this is Jeff Hawkins' company, and we have a contractual relationship with them. Numenta has developed HDM to predict anomalies. So in order to predict anomalies, you have to be able to learn how to predict many things. For example, in this particular waveform, HDM has learned to predict most of it except for the points indicated by the red dots. and those have been termed anomalies. And you can go through this and figure out, how well does HTM predict anomalies compared to other methods, and HTM does a fairly good job. And and that's mainly because it's very good at predicting. So it can predict some very high order sequences. High order meaning that there can be many repeating similar patterns, but HTM can distinguish the difference between those patterns and make the appropriate prediction. So our strategic direction for CATE is, that we will not only use CATE to demonstrate HTM, but of course we're going to try to advance machine intelligence, or HTM, such that we can develop a method for because I'm confident we can learn a sequence and we can essentially replay the sequence out through CATE and have CATE walk. But what we're really looking for is the ability for CATE or HTM to learn multiple sequences and be able to walk under many conditions. But we're also looking at CATE as a means for delivering Watson services. Watson technology can be put on mobile robots to allow for conversations and questions and answers. And so I recently took CATE to the Austin lab, where they are implementing this robotic SDK on mobile robots. And the most common question I heard there repeated very often was, what is the capital of Texas? And a lot of times they get it right. So that's the other aspect, is that we want to be able to develop CATE to connect to Watson services and deliver these services to people. But we really would like to add to the capability of Watson by improving HTM, such that we can learn under many situations or contexts, learn maybe through demonstrations and then form actions from these experiences. We're also envisioning that CATE is a collaborative platform for machine intelligence. You can recognize that this concept for machine intelligence might take a while. So we are thinking of CATE as an open robotic platform for IBM services, but for other people to have this robot to develop machine intelligence in other ways, but also using possibly existing Watson services. We think it's fairly low cost. The one with the PVC is certainly pretty low cost. We built that over the summer. We had a couple of summer students put that together. For motors, it's a restricted number of degrees of freedom, because we are concentrating on the bipedal locomotion part. So that's our main focus for CATE. We want to get bipedal locomotion. I note that traditional control metrics are really not applicable for locomotion. When people talk about control, generally people talk about control error, bandwidth, stability margins, but none of that is really important for walking. The metric in walking should be that it doesn't fall, even given variety of environments, and even given the fact that no two steps are the same. It needs to be able to handle the various contexts associated with walking on slightly different surfaces. And that's what we want to demonstrate with HDM, that we can learn the different contexts associated with carpet or tile or slightly uneven surfaces, recognize it, and perform the correct actions appropriately. We think walking is, the ability to recognize the different contexts and produce actuation that keeps Kate upright is sort of a microcosm of intelligence, sort of, and that's really where we want to get to. Right now, at this point, we do not have HDM running on the iPad. We've been able to get a small version of HDM running on the iPad, but that won't. We will have a larger version of HDM running on a machine that will be wirelessly connected to it. So that's our plan for Kate and HDM, and there are a couple more slides in the deck that explain HDM somewhat better than what I just said. It gives you the algorithm. I think from this you can almost write code, so I'm hoping people can start to look at it. Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you, Wayne. I'd like to open it up for questions for Wayne, and you need to press *1 to unmute your line.
Yeah, hi, Wayne. Can you hear me? This is Jim Spohr.
Hi. Yes, I can.
Hi, Wayne. Thanks for presenting. And I just want to ask if you could elaborate a little bit on your closing a little bit. If there are faculty or students somewhere in the world who would like to, independently start some activities that might be useful and align downstream, is there anything more that you can say about what you would like to see them do? Like, should they be working on getting certain things running on an iPad, or should they be, understanding certain documents? Can you elaborate just a little bit on what you would like to see faculty and students around the world start doing?
Well, I think if people start to think about robots as more of autonomous devices rather than remotely controlled, mechanics, and start to try to help us understand what intelligence, machine intelligence should be, the components of machine intelligence, and I think that'll be very useful to get a variety of opinions and ideas for machine intelligence. It's something that the entire community probably is after, but robotics is different when you think about autonomous control.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And there are more slides. This presentation is up on our Cognitive Systems Institute website, where we list all the speakers and the recordings, and there are more detailed slides in the PDF version that I have up there, and you can get some more background on this project. Are there other questions for Wayne?
Hi, Wayne. This is Scott McCloud. As a follow-up to Jim Spohr's question about what possible students could do with machine learning and robotics, I don't know if you're familiar with MIT OpenCourseWare, but if there was a very early class, first-level class that an MIT student might take, what coding language and what course, hypothetically, might that be for learning about autonomy and actually beginning to work with it on their own?
So a lot of the code, so the HTM code is open by Numenta. They have an open source policy. The code that we develop is slightly different, but it's very similar to the open source code. So HTM has been written, it's very simple actually. If you look through the slides, the main ideas behind HTM are simple enough to implement. I've implemented the HTM in MATLAB, C, C++, Java, and Objective-C. So I have a small version of HTM running on my phone. So the key probably to HTM is the scale. So you can imagine that as compared to traditional von Neumann processors, HTM will be highly parallel. There will be many regions of HTM running with lots of activity in parallel and a significant hierarchy implemented. By the way, we are working also to develop saccadic vision. So it's the way we all see things conveyed with our eyes, but we are implementing saccadic vision using HTM as well. So if you can imagine Kate saccading over the world, both with her eyes or cameras, to understand what the world looks like, learn enough about the world to be able to predict it. That's sort of the way I'm thinking of machine intelligence.
Thank you. Very interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Thank you. Very interesting. What else were you going to say?
Well, it's the idea of machine intelligence is it's involved. It's talked about in neuroscience. So it's maybe the appropriate course would be on cognitive neuroscience. But the idea of forming, of understanding the dynamics of cognition for intelligence is still starting. We know a lot about neurons and about synapses and about how they're connected, but and we're starting to learn a lot about what the dynamics looks like, but a lot of that is still not clear.
Great. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Are there other questions? Wayne, I know Kate is initially walking, but will eventually, gain other senses. What in considering applications for Kate, what professions might be the early adopters of this technology?
What I missed some part of that question.
What industry or what professions might use this technology? In working application?
Well, once we get bipedal locomotion and robust bipedal locomotion, and we can have Kate not only walk but go up steps, then we have a platform through which all our cognitive services from Watson and or services we develop through HDM can be delivered. And what I'm thinking of, and what I would really like to see is that Kate be assistive, be selflessly assisting others in ways that that a lot of people talk about right now. I mean, people talk about elderly care and assisting people. Just so I think one of the keys is bipedal locomotion. Once you get something that can walk, through a house or through buildings effortlessly, then we have this conduit really that through which we can deliver our services and have these services help people and perform tasks, at least some tasks, autonomously. So that's another reason why I'm interested in bipedal locomotion.
I think it's very exciting. When we talk about cognitive assistance, this could be, like a cognitive friend, too.
Yeah, right.
All right. Are there other questions? We have a couple of minutes left. If not, I'd just like to thank Wayne. This is a very exciting technology, and I'm interested in the progress on this. Thank
Diane?
you for our presenter. Yes?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. This is Courtney. I got in a little bit late, but I had looked over these slides before. So I guess a question that I have is about how the difference between machine learning, machine intelligence was interesting and enabled, the concept of being able to have a more generalizable learning process, whereas was also fascinating. So if you're talking about, let's just say something as simple as navigating through a building, how generalizable is that in terms of once the system learns about, what rooms are like and what a path looks like through a building, does that translate in terms of a heuristic, sort of, that it could be popped into a different building and would learn the layout of that building sort of by trial and error, but then would the learning be more quick at that point? I'm just using a very simple example, but I'm trying to wrap my brain around this.
Yeah, well, in our brains, there are things called place cells. So there's a cell that activates, when we're in a particular location. They have found these cells in rats that run mazes. There's a cell that activates when it's in a particular place. There's also this idea of this Jennifer Aniston neuron.
Right.
So what we're hoping to do is, through the hierarchy, be able to generalize well enough that these higher order concepts like place or face is represented. I have to say we haven't done this yet, but that's what we want to do.
And then I guess place would be something that would be dependent on, like, at what scale are we talking about place? But I guess we'll figure that out.
Yeah. The closest we are approaching this is through our saccadic vision project, where as we saccade, we take patches of images that are connected as a sequence, and we try to develop a way of identifying this sequence of saccades with an object. And we have to be able to do this for objects of various sizes and locations and poses. So we have to be able to develop a method for generalizing this.
Right. Sounds fascinating. I look forward to following your progress on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. And Wayne, thank you for being our presenter. The recording will be available on our Cognitive Systems Institute website, and I encourage you to look through the rest of Wayne's slides that are also posted. So thanks, everybody. I hope we'll see you next week, and thank you again, Wayne.
Thanks.